Hey, everybody. Welcome to our very first stream on our new channel. We're going to look at the CompTIA Tech Plus certification, specifically the applications part of this test. So for those of you who are new to us, welcome, welcome, welcome. The live stream started because of the Latinas in Tech out here in Houston. They're working on their Tech Plus certification. So if you're watching live, hello. If you're watching from the future, hello from the past. Also, I'm teaching out here for the We Teach CS program out of the Region 4 hub. And so we have a bunch of teachers who are working on their tech apps certification. So welcome. We do go into more detail than you need, I believe, for the exam, but this is good stuff to know because you're going to want to become a tech teacher, and this is stuff that you should be comfortable with. And to everybody else, from Houston to across the world, welcome. So what we're going to do is this is a 2-hour live session, and we have our wonderful moderator. Hey, we have our wonderful moderator, my oldest son, Alexander, who is going to watch the chat. He will also ping me directly so I know to take a look at the questions, and I'm very happy to answer questions. So the general format today is we're going to do a lecture towards the end of the first hour. So it's 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time right now. Towards the tail end of this hour, last 10 minutes or so, 6:50 or so, we got a Kahoot quiz for you, 10 questions, and then we're going to regroup and then finish off, hopefully, this unit. And then the last 10 minutes of this live stream, we've got another Kahoot for you. So should be fun. Again, we had some great interactions yesterday, some great questions, so I'm looking forward to also answering your questions tonight. We did have to pivot yesterday because YouTube had not approved this current channel, our new channel, for live streams, but 24 hours has passed and we're good to go. So that's enough of me rambling. I'm sure I'll do it again later tonight, but that is just who I am. And let's hop into applications. So oh, I'm sorry. Of course, we couldn't just have everything going nice. Had a little bit of a bug there. I'll repeat what I just said. Everything was going so smooth too, but let's try this again. Let's look at the objectives. So list and give brief descriptions of the different software categories. List and give descriptions of programs within the productivity, collaboration, instant messaging, web browsing, and remote support software categories. List, let me double check here. I'm being pinged. Apparently, we're still having issues with our audio. We should be good. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Just what is a live stream without technical difficulties? So list and execute the different tasks with regards to managing software. Describe the concept of intellectual property. Describe software privacy. And describe the potential consequences of piracy. Arg. So let's take a look first at our types of software and take a quick look at the overview. So we have different ways to classify software. The first way is by taking a look at whether or not it is designed for the system you're on, or if it's designed for you to use for, like, example, an application or things like that. So we can break this thing down into, for example, system software and application software. System software are programs designed to run or help the computer run. System software is things, for example, like operating systems, which we talked about yesterday, utilities and drivers, The primary purpose is to help the computer work. So these are kind of the boring things, but are necessary for the functioning of your computer. So things like the control panel, device manager, and the MMC, and we talked about these yesterday in our live stream, which you can find actually on my primary channel, Mr. Ford's Class. Again, we had a little bit of an issue yesterday with doing a live stream here. Then we have application software. Application is software designed for the user to get something done. Applications are the reason why most people buy a computer. They can help users get their work done, be more productive, play games, watch movies. Basically, this is why you have a computer to do stuff with it. Very few people, and there are people out there, I'm sure, who buy a computer just for the sake of having a computer. But the rest of us normal folks, including us geeks, typically buy computers to get something done, whether it is playing video games, or maybe business work, or video editing, or live streams, or things like that. We want application software because we have something in mind that we want to do. So there are various ways to classify and categorize applications. These are kind of artificial models. In fact, the previous version of the Tech Plus, the ITF Plus certification, had different ways to classify them. So as we take a look at this, understand that there's no law that says you have to be classified as this. We're kind of using our best kind of ideas when it comes to classification and how we should organize these things. But you're going to see things that kind of dip toes into other categories, which we'll see in a little bit. So methods are here to help us make sense of the different types of software. It helps us learn about them. It allows customers to narrow in on software solutions that can solve their problems. And various softwares could have different classification methods, and that is perfectly fine. For example, we might divide our software into business software. These are programs designed for business things. If you want to do business, and hello, business, then you might use business software. For example, maybe email or SharePoint or Microsoft Word, or these could be classified as business softwares. But again, this is not what we're looking at for the Tech Plus, okay? We can look at personal software. These might be things for like games or entertainment things that we might want to use. And of course, we have mobile software. So the point here right now, before we take a look at the CompTIA's model, is that if you see other folks classifying software differently, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean that you say, well, you know, Scott said there's different ways to classify them. But let's talk about the classification method that you're actually accountable for on the certification test. And that, of course, is the CompTIA method of classifications. So CompTIA has divided applications into the following groupings. We have productivity software, collaboration software, instant messaging software, web browsing software, and finally, remote support software. Let's take a little looky at file extensions. This also, by the way, shows up on the certification test. So to understand file names and extensions, we might need to take a quick look at what we're talking about with files and extensions. A file is how things are stored on the computer. Yesterday, in our operating system lecture, we looked at, for example, NTFS, we looked at FAT32, we took a look at the Apple ways to classify things, their file systems. So files are how things are organized on our computers. Files can be saved as word processing, documents, game saves, programs, whatever. Pretty much if it's stored on the computer, it is stored as a file. Extensions tell the operating system what type of file it is. Okay, we have this file that has a JPG behind it. Well, what is a JPG? What's a JPEG? Well, it's an image file. And so your operating system knows that we need to open up an image file with some sort of image software. If we have an MP3, well, what's an MP3? Well, an MP3, of course, is audio, right? It's music, it's sound, and it tells the computer, hey, this is what this type of file is, and this is how we open it, okay? So extensions were traditionally 3 characters, but it's now common to see more than just 3. Now, let me put on my old man hat. Let me grab my coffee here, get a little latte here. Got unlimited coffee in the office, so. And sit back, kiddies, while I tell you a story about the old days. See, in the old days, we had something called the 8.3. And the 8.3, I couldn't do that voice for the entire time, but the 8.3 was how we had to label our files and our extensions. We could only have 8 characters, and then we had a period, and then we had our 3 letters for extensions, and that was the 8.3, and you had to follow that. It was non-negotiable. So let's say you had a Word document. You had to come up with some word processing document, because I don't think Word really existed back then. But let's say you had a word processing document. You had to come up with very creative ways to save the file name so you understood what it was, because you only had 8 characters at the beginning, and then you had 3 characters at the end, and now that is no longer true. And so all the old techs that are watching this are probably having flashbacks. For those of you who remember this, it's time to have some Advil, take a nap at Central Time. So let's continue on. So we can see the extensions by default, I will add, that extensions are hidden in Windows 10 and Windows 11 because they're common file names or file extensions, so they don't really need to show them, but you can have them visible if you choose to. To make them visible, you'd open up any folder and do the following. You would click on View, then click Show, and finally you can do Show File Name Extensions, which will show you what the file is. Then we have executables. These are special files known as executables. These are files that will run an application. In the Windows world, the exe file is the most common type of executable. Yes, you need to know this for the exam. All right, let's hop into our first category, which is productivity software. Productivity software pretty much helps people get things done. They help us be productive to get stuff done. This can either be for personal use or work. Sometimes the lines are very blurred. For example, word processing. Word processing can be used for work. It can also be used for personal uses. It's not necessarily Microsoft Word, for example, is only found in a business setting. You have spreadsheets. Okay. Now, spreadsheets, we'll talk about spreadsheets in a minute, but spreadsheets can be used for business, which is what most people use them for. Or, and this is my private shame, so don't tell anybody, I use spreadsheets for games. There's some games that I play, like Satisfactory and other games, where I keep a spreadsheet for different recipes and things like that. So it doesn't have to be for business. Don't judge me. Then we have presentation software and we have visual diagramming software. So it is not uncommon for software to be combined into suites. More or less what it is if you're using Microsoft Word, chances are you're also using PowerPoint. Or if you're using, for example, a software suite from Adobe, if you're using Photoshop, you're probably using some other digital graphics or digital media software. So they package them up and offer them as suites. Probably one of the most well-known suites is, of course, Microsoft Office, but there's others out there. There's Apache OpenOffice, there's Apple iWork, there's the Google Workspace, and there's LibreOffice. And they have different names for their software. So, for example, Microsoft Office has Word as their word processor, while iWorks calls it Page, Google Workspace calls it Google Docs, and OpenOffice calls it Writer. But you can see here in this table what these things are known as. So let's take a little bit closer look at word processing. Word processors at the most basic level allow you to write, edit, and save text. They're not necessarily supposed to be fancy. At the most basic level, a text program like Notepad is a text editor. But of course, we want something a little bit fancier. And so we have things like Word, we have Pages, we have Google Docs, we have Writer. We also have very specialized word processing software. So for example, Scrivener, if you write books or if you write things like that, you can use Scrivener. Scrivener is designed specifically with writers in mind. There's also a special word processing program. The name eludes me at the moment, but it's designed for screenplay writers that focuses on that type of industry. Adobe also has a word processing program, and again, the name is I'm totally blanking on it, but it ties specifically into InDesign perfectly. So if you work in their word processing software, it pulls directly into InDesign very cleanly, very neatly. So these are not just normal word processing software. You also have special word processing software for specialized jobs. Our little geeky knowledge here, liquid paper was designed as a correction, was one of the first correction fluids invented. Now, back in the old days, we had typewriters, and if you made a mistake on the typewriter, you had a problem because paper wasn't erasable with this ink, at least originally. And so you had to use correcting fluid to basically white out the paper so you could retype over it. And you can see here, Betty Graham invented liquid paper, which was, again, one of the first corrective fluids invented, in her kitchen. And for those of you who like old TV shows and old bands, she actually was the mother of one of the monkeys from the TV show and the band The Monkees. Next, we have spreadsheets. Spreadsheets allow us to enter numbers, text, and formulas into cells. Users can manipulate and format those cells in different ways. With spreadsheets, we can create budgets, manage inventory, track items in a game. Yes, like I said, I do that. But it is a very powerful method of doing calculations and doing formulas. There's also entire certifications on spreadsheets. There's kind of careers built around spreadsheets. And every company has somewhere to all things business. When we talk about databases in another live stream, we'll get into kind of what spreadsheets are and where their limitations are in much more detail. But spreadsheets, very, very powerful, very useful for a lot of different situations. Fun little geeky goodness here for you. The original IBM really didn't take off when it was first introduced to consumers. Then we had something called Lotus 123, and Lotus 123 was considered the killer app. A killer app is the entire justification to purchase a computer or a game system or something like that. It is something that's like, well, we have to have this program. We're going to buy the thing that supports that program. So Lotus 123, during the early days of computing, was that killer app. Now, interestingly enough, and you probably never heard of Lotus 123, the killer app, the thing that started all of the spreadsheets, was something called VisiCalc, created by Dan Bricklin, who is considered the father of the spreadsheets. And to my knowledge, he is still alive, and he has a Twitter channel, or I guess X channel, right? Some popular spreadsheet programs include Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets, and LibreOffice Calc. Then we have presentation software. Presentation software, this type of software is used to share information with others in a more visually appealing format than just reading a document. So, for example, PowerPoint is an example of presentation software. And you have a lot of power in these presentation software. They're not just simple slides. You can do a lot with them. You can add animation. I've used them for storyboards. Now, I will say this. If you are not experimenting with AI yet, Claude Cowork, it's a download. You have to have a subscription to Claude to use it. Like I said, I teach for We Teach CS out here at the Region 4 hub out here in Houston. And I'm able to take content for the students in the class, raw content, able to take links to websites, links to YouTube videos, put them into Cowork, Claude Cowork, and have Claude Cowork actually create professional looking PowerPoint presentations. It is insane what it does. In fact, I'm now putting all my other PowerPoints that I've developed myself through Claude Cowork just to do a check, just to look for spelling mistakes, because sometimes they're sneaky and they slip by me. Just to edit them. So Claude Cowork, if you're not playing around with that, highly recommend it. But that's a conversation for something entirely different. And I do see something popped up in our chat. Yeah, I don't do anything from scratch anymore at work. Claude is, no kidding, right? Claude is awesome. If I keep talking about Claude, I'm gonna have to probably put a disclaimer on this video, paid advertisement. But I do love Claude. Claude Cowork has been phenomenal. I was using it today to check quiz questions for our StackFord Moodle site. I have it used for checking PowerPoints. Claude Code, also just insanely amazing, but I could talk all day, and that's not what we're here for. I do have a lesson later on AI, but now is not that time. So let me finish swirling there and focus back on what I'm doing. Connie, you see what you caused? So then we have visual diagramming software used to create flowcharts, computer network diagrams, floor layouts, organizational charts, everything things that require visual representation. You can make developing things like flowcharts, organizational charts easier because it can help with automated tasks. Some well-known examples of visual diagramming software include things like Microsoft Visio, that's kind of the granddaddy of them all, Lucid Charts and Flowcharts, SmartDraw, and Glyphy. This is something you need to know. Let me rephrase this. You need to know what I'm going to put back on the screen, not just from the point of view for the exam, but if you use computers, you should be able to look at the extensions right here and understand, hey, this is a Microsoft document. This is a Word doc. This is a rich text format. That's kind of a generic version of Microsoft Office doc. A TXT is a text file. The PPT is the older version of the PowerPoint, while Microsoft Office added that X at the end for the newer versions because of the markup language behind them. You have XML, which is an Excel file, all that fun stuff. So you need to know these for the exam as well as the real world, okay? So there's our exam tip, which is what I just said. You need to know them, be familiar with them. Now, I say be familiar with them because they're not going to ask you on the exam to fill in the blank. They're not going to say, list what the extension is for a Word doc, list the extension of what an Excel is. It's going to be recognition. It's going to be, okay, which of these files does this? Which of the extensions does this? So recognition versus recall of filling in a blank, okay? All right, let's take a look at collaboration software. So the purpose of collaboration software is to collaborate, right? There are programs in other categories that also allow communication, but it's secondary to the primary purpose of the software. So the primary purpose of this is communication. Some of the software in this category includes email clients, conferencing, online workspace, and document sharing. As a side note, I'm looking at our slide count, and I think we're going to be done with this presentation a lot earlier. Yesterday's presentation, I think we had 120 slides in the deck. This one has only 90. So if we get done early, we get done early. We can all go home, or I can go home because I'm still in the office. So email is a combination of the word electronic and mail. The exchange of messages between people using electronic devices has been around for a very long time. Email came out well before graphic interfaces were here. I remember my very first email account. It was a long time ago. I would say 95, 96 or so. And it was all text-based. There was no graphics. It was just all text. I had no idea what to do with it and didn't really see a need to it because nobody else was really using it. But email's been around for a very, very, very long time, okay? People can use email programs that are found on their computer, or they can use cloud-based emails with their browser. We have an entire unit just on cloud computing and virtualization. Also options to use both. So for example, if you have a Microsoft 360 account, you can use it cloud-based or Outlook on the computer. Some popular email solutions include Gmail, iCloud Mail, Microsoft Outlook, Mozilla Thunderbird, Proton Mail, and Yahoo still is around. I've also seen people with AOL email accounts. Special notice about Proton Mail. Proton Mail is a good email system or email software. If you're very concerned about privacy and encryption, you can make a free account. Again, very good for privacy. If that's important to you, check out Proton Mail. The next one is communication and conferencing software. Have seen tremendous growth both in its function and in its adoption, and it allows users to communicate in real time with another person, team, client, large audience. I think we're all familiar with communication and conferencing software. We've had to use it quite a bit. We were starting to see a lot of people use this pre-COVID. During the COVID lockdowns, these things absolutely blew up. And so I think we're all familiar with what these are. Okay, that you can share things like text chat, live video, desktops, all that good stuff. Some common conferencing software include things like Discord, Google Chat, GoToMeeting. That's an oldie too. Kind of more of a corporate kind of, dress shirt and tie corporate kind of tool there. Microsoft Teams, Slack, WebEx, and Zoom. And little fun trivia for you. During the pandemic, Zoom sales went up 300%. Their stock price went from $80 to over $500 a share. Let's see. I'm pulling up on a separate web page here. And remember, this went up to over $500. And it's currently trading as an FYI $99.42. That's actually higher than I've seen it in a while. Usually when I look at it, and this is live as of the recording of right now in the live stream, this is a live price of the stock. I've typically seen it around the 80s. So could you imagine spending the $500 a share holding on to it, and now you're down to 90 something dollars a share? That would not be fun. That would be absolutely not a cool thing. Okay. We're back. You see here? Tell you what. Let me see something. I think we might break for our first game here. Let me see where we're at. We are. All right, let me finish off. I'm going to finish off collaboration software. So we're almost done with that. And then we'll launch our very first Kahoot for the night. That'll be fun. Okay. So Online Workspaces is software that is an online platform that allows people or teams to collaborate and manage work remotely over the internet. This allows us to work from all over the state, all over the country, all over the world. Basically, all you need is a network connection and you're good to go. Some examples of online workspaces include Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Teams. Yes, we did say Teams before, but it's also an online workspace. Google Workspace, formerly called G Suite, Slack, and Monday.com. Monday is one of my more favorite of the online workspaces. Unfortunately, I wish I could use it, but they want you to have a team. And, I'm pretty much in the office by myself, and we don't really have any need for it. Looking forward to being big enough of a company where we have to get it again. Some extra geeky goodness here for you. Sometimes these software classifications become a little artificial, like I said earlier, as developers of these software solutions add additional functionality. So Microsoft Teams is a great example of where they keep adding additional features to their software. The problem, though, is they keep adding things, they keep changing things, so you get used to something, then you log in, you're like, what's going on here? Or it breaks something, so that's always fun. Then we have document sharing. In the old days, we had something called SneakerNet. SneakerNet, of course, is when you would put a file on a floppy drive or something like that and walk it from one computer to another computer. Technology continues to advance to support collaboration and a more dispersed workforce. We have At the most basic level for document sharing, the ability to share and store files and folders in the cloud. Now, most, if not all, document sharing services allow more than one person to read and write to the file at the same time. Now, this was actually uncommon not that long ago. Microsoft SharePoint, for example, you would have to check out files while you use them, and nobody else could actually do anything with that file while it was checked out. They could see the old version of it, or the version that was being before you started editing it, but collaborative time, working in real time with other people with an online anything, was unheard of. Now, Google kind of, I want to say, set the pace for this, because with their Google Docs, you could have more than one person in their word processing program. While they were doing that, Microsoft Word didn't have that capability. But now it's kind of standard, right? So you could be editing Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel or any of these and have other people in there at the same time making changes in real time. Some popular examples of document sharing services include things like Dropbox, Google Drive, and Microsoft OneDrive. Here are some extensions that you should be familiar with. Okay, let us take a break and let's play a little Kahoot. Let me go pull that up here. So get your phones ready or get your brain ready. Let me open up the Kahoot that we want. Put this over on the proper screen here. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right, come on in and join. Go to kahoot.it, enter that game pin, or you can just scan the QR code to play along. So we're going to give you guys a few minutes to join in because I know there is a delay. As I'm saying this, it's 6:33. We'll give you guys till about 6:37 to join in the game. So once again, go to kahoot.it, either enter the PIN number or scan the QR code. You can play it on your phone if you want. And we will start up in about 3 minutes. All right, I think that's going to be it. We're getting a lot more people who are watching this kind of at their own time. They don't want to hang with us at night, which is fine as long as y'all are watching it, learning this material, working on that certification. That's all that matters. So there's 2 people in our Kahoot right now. Let's battle it out. Here we go. Oh, I think we're back on here. Okay. What is application software mainly used for? By the way, it looks like we lost connection for a second. I think we're back on here. Helping users complete tasks. Okay. This is weird. Let's see what's going on here. Question number 2. Which of the following is an example of productivity software? Word processing. Yep, word processor. There we go. Now we got some scores up there. Next question. What does a file extension usually tell you? What does a file extension usually tell you? The type of file or program associated with it. Absolutely. All right, next question. Double points. Still anybody's game. Which file extension is commonly associated with a Microsoft Word document for double points? The docx. Yep. All right, next question. Question number 5. What type of software would you use to create a slideshow for a class presentation? Presentation software. All right, next question. Question number 6. Which type of productivity software is best for organizing numbers, formulas, and tables? Spreadsheet software. All right, next question. Question number 7. Which of the following is an example of collaboration software? That, of course, is email. This is really kind of coming down to who hits that button fastest. All right, next question. Question number 8. What is the one major purpose of instant messaging software? To send quick real-time messages. All right, next question. Question number 9. For double points, which software type is best for creating flowcharts, network diagrams, or visual layouts? Visual diagramming software. All right, last question. Geek alert. In The Lord of the Rings, what is the name of the wizard who guides the fellowship? Oh, here we go. Coming in third place. Nobody. Coming in second place. Virtuous Duck. And coming in first place, Agile Hyena. Congratulations. All right. A little fun there. We will have one more Kahoot game by the end of the night. And again, we're kind of going through pretty quickly here. So if you have any questions, by all means, please jump into chat and ask them. All right, let me hop back into our presentation here. We have just finished off the collaboration software. Let's hop into instant messaging software. Let me switch the screen over here. By the way, if you haven't signed up, we do have a newsletter you can sign up for. So the newsletter comes out about once a month or so. Keep on top of what's going on. And of course, we have my book, which is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. All right, let's hop back into the content. So instant messaging software. Instant messaging software basically allows users to chat in real time, chatting via text message, voice, or video. Instant messaging solutions are usually have the ability to also share files and images. Some popular examples of instant messaging software include Discord, Facebook Messenger, GroupMe, which is what we're using right now for, is it GroupMe? Was that what we're using for the Latinos in Tech? Yeah, no, we're using WhatsApp. Sorry, my bad. I got pulled into a GroupMe for something else. I got a lot of ways to communicate with me. Signal, Slack, Snapchat, Telegram, and WhatsApp are all popular examples of instant messaging software. These, of course, change based off of new technology or who's popular or where the scammers wind up going. But those are different examples. Then we have web browsing software. I would like to say, as far as web browsing software, that we talk about this in much more detail in a later chapter. We actually look at wide area networks on its own. I think we have virtualization in there and cloud computing in there. So this is just a quick little overview of the web browsers. So web browsers allow us to interact with something called the World Wide Web. The web is the graphical face of the internet. This is what made the internet very, very popular. The World Wide Web is not the internet. It is part of the internet. The internet is this huge thing. The World Wide Web is just one little part of the internet as a whole. Okay. So web browsers access files on something called a web server. There are several popular choices to choose from when it comes to web browsers. For example, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, which replaced Microsoft Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Opera, Tor. There's all sorts of other ones. I think my youngest son uses Brave. Xander, if you want to chime in the chat, I don't know which one you use. I think Hunter uses Brave. Special word about Tor, however. Tor is what we use for the dark web. Tor is a special browser which definitely prioritizes privacy, and it's able to access the dark web, which is basically dark web is sites that aren't indexed by like Google and things like that. Yep, also using Brave. Okay, I really got to switch. I'm using Google Chrome, and apparently Google Chrome got in trouble recently because they were downloading AI tools onto people's computers without their permission. So there's that. Next, we have remote support software. Remote support software allows us to support computers and devices that are not, next door. So imagine for a moment that you have a tech who is in, let's say, Tampa, Florida, and they're servicing clients who are maybe in Houston or Dallas or Fort Worth, and a client has a problem with their computer. Well, we don't want to have to fly the technician from Tampa all the way out to Dallas. Instead, what they're able to do is they're able to remote into that computer to hopefully fix it. So that's what remote support software allows us to do. There are some popular software solutions. For example, Microsoft Remote Desktop. TeamViewer. TeamViewer is pretty fun. You can actually download TeamViewer for free and use it for free if it's for personal use. If you start using it for commercial use, then you have to pay the licensing fee. We talked about licensing yesterday in the operating system live stream. But TeamViewer is very powerful, very cool, where you can remote control your devices or other people's devices from a distance. For example, my parents, rest their souls, lived in Venice, Florida, that's south of Tampa, and they were boomers, and sometimes the TV remote was a little too much sometimes, and so TeamViewer was my brother and my way to help fix their computer without having to spend an hour on the phone with my mom or dad. So that was TeamViewer, very helpful. And of course, the old one is Go to My PC. That's also been around for a bit. So let's talk about managing software now. So managing software means that we're taking care of our software, right? Managing software includes being able to find software, buy the software, install the software, maintain the software, and ultimately uninstall the software if need be. Now, I will add this one caveat, and this is an important caveat for computer people. And I hope my kid's listening. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it or that you are allowed to do that. I'll give you a really extreme example from my past. So I had worked for the FBI out in Quantico for about 2 years. And I'm an instructional designer, so I'm developing courses and things like that. Well, I needed to print out some work. I needed to print out a proof for a client, things like that. And so I sent the print to the printer. Well, I go to the printer and it's got a little error message that just said out of paper. Well, if you have a printer that doesn't have paper, what do? Right? You put more paper in the printer. Well, my supervisor found out I put paper in the printer and tried to write me up for it. Yeah. I was like, what? I'm like, what am I supposed to do? If the printer's out of paper, I put paper in the printer. This is kind of, kind of a thing here. The answer I got, remember, this is the FBI, so government bureaucracy, was I was supposed to put a ticket. I'm not making this stuff up. Folks, you cannot make this stuff up. I could go on a comedy tour just telling stories from my life. I was supposed to put a ticket to have a technician come out and put paper in the printer. Hold on a second. Yeah. Printer paper required a request to the technicians. Now, this is obviously an extreme example, right? This is an extreme example. But one of the things that techies tend to get in trouble for is we go, hey, there's a problem here. I can fix this. This is easy. Oh, I can install this, or I can do this. Make sure that you're not going to get in trouble from your company for doing that. Don't install software in a company computer unless you have permission, unless you're allowed to install that software. One of the fastest ways to get in trouble or get fired is by doing something with the technology that you don't have authorization to do. Even if it's a simple fix. Even if you're looking at something going, you know what, this is not a problem, let me just and be done with it. Some places you can get into serious trouble for that. Okay. So make sure that you're allowed to do it before you actually do it. Okay. That was my warning to you. It's my caveat. And like I said, we typically get in trouble for it because we're like, oh, this is an easy fix. And we try to fix it. And then all of a sudden we're in HR having to justify our existence. All right. So let's talk about finding and buying software. It's an important step in the software management process. So the first of all, we have to discover if we have a need to purchase something. The first step is determine if there's a need for a software solution. For example, do you need to edit video, write documents, enjoy some downtime, have entertainment? What is the actual need that you're trying to solve? Then we have a solution. So you found that you have a need. What's the solution for that need? Okay. The next step is to find possible solutions. The consumer can narrow down possible solutions by looking at the additional steps. Store. There's a lot of options when it comes to purchasing software. Will it be a physical copy? And those are like almost extinct now. Or will you download something? Or do you not even download it? Maybe you use it for a cloud. So where do you buy it? Users have to decide if they want a hard copy of the software or a downloaded version. Like I said, finding hard copy software is close to impossible now. You need to find a store to purchase the software. Now, this is and can show up on the test. For Macs and iPhones, you're buying your software through the App Store. For Microsoft people, yes, you can get it elsewhere, but know that there's a Microsoft store that you can download and buy software from. For us Droid people, we have the Play Store. And then for fun, you have some other ones out there. Those aren't on the test, but the first three, the App Store, the Microsoft Store, and the Play Store, can show up on the test. And they won't ask you flat out, match what you would buy from what device you have. They're going to say something like, Tammy has an iPhone and she needs personal fitness tracking software. where's she going to get her tracking software from? And they're going to give you a list. Is it going to be the Play Store, Microsoft Store, the App Store? Where's she going to buy it from? You need to know if you're on an iPhone, where you get it from. If you're on a Droid, where do you get it from? All that good stuff. Okay. So that's how they'll kind of word that. Then we also have to worry about compatibility. We talked about compatibility yesterday, which is you need to make sure your operating system will work with it and your device, your hardware will work with it. You have cross-platform, and cloud software can work on either. But for the most part, a PC, a Windows software is going to work on a Windows computer, and an Apple software is going to work on Mac OS. So check your compatibility. Again, you have dual cross-platform, and of course, cloud computing gets rid of a lot of that concern when it comes to compatibility. There could be other requirements as well that you need to be aware of. So, for example, is the software within the budget? That's a huge concern. How is the software supported, and is the software regularly updated? These are important when you're making business decisions. Is the software got support? Some companies, for example, we had, I helped stand up an Adobe learning management system, an LMS. And in our contract, we were allowed so many hours of support. So sometimes you have support built into your contract. Also, is the software being updated regularly? Do we have regular updates? Has this software just been basically abandoned and good luck with it? Or do they regularly update it, make sure it doesn't have any bugs or fix bugs, improve functionality, things like that? And then finally, buying the software. Time to pull the trigger and purchase the software. How will the user pay for it? Is it a personal purchase? Is it a business purchase? When will the software be purchased? Does it fit the budget? Do you need a PO? All that stuff. Then we have installing the software. So installing the software has been purchased and now needs to be installed on the computer. There are 3 methods to be aware of. You have a local install, local network hosted, and cloud hosted. And yes, the exam wants you to know all 3 of these. The first one is locally installed, and that is a picture from the Houston Micro Center, which is an amazing place. If you are in Houston, you need to check it out. Or if you're not in Houston, see if there's a Micro Center near you. Love these places. And there you can see my wife and my 2 kids. And we're going to Micro Center. It's our happy place. So the software is installed on the physical device. In the old days, you would get your box and have a floppy drive or an optical drive and install the software on your computer. All parts of the program are found on the computer. So locally installed means you install it locally on your device. It is living on your computer. Okay. Then we have something called the Wizard. The Wizard
Dungeons and Dragons.
Installation programs on the PC is relatively easy. When the user launches the program, something known as the Wizard shows up. It helps you install the software. It puts the software on your computer. It goes through the steps. The Wizard helps guide you through the entire process, making your life easier, because installing software isn't just put it in one place. It's got to go throughout your computer, like through the registry and things like that. Yep, absolutely. Love some Micro Center. And out in Houston, there is a cool restaurant. If you haven't discovered this place, there's a cool restaurant nearby Micro Center called a Hobbit Cafe. And so usually we'll go to one and then go to the other. But the Hobbit Cafe out here in Houston, if you've never been, it is such a cool place. It's got this whole Lord of the Rings theme. The wait staff, depending on how geeky they are, might be walking around like little elf ears. And they have mead. Oh, yes, mead. But we won't talk about that. But Hobbit Cafe and Micro Center is a great weekend. Moving on. Let's see. We have local network hosted. Application is installed on a local area network or LAN. We'll learn about networking in a different live stream. Networks are covered in more detail, like I said, later on. To run the program, the user must access the program on that network. And finally, we have something called cloud hosted. Cloud computing will be covered in the Unit 9 unit, or lesson, I should say. We have WAN, virtualization, cloud computing. We have a whole thing on cloud computing. But just know we have something called a SaaS, or software as a service. You're very familiar with SaaS, even if you may not know it. If you've ever used Google Mail, for example, that is an example of a SaaS. This is where the user accesses the application over the cloud. If any part of the program is stored on the user's computer, it's typically a very small part. It leaves a very small footprint if it's actually installed anything on the person's computer. But I would say if you have a mobile device, chances are you're using a lot of SaaS products anyways, because most of those things are cloud computing to some degree. Then we have something called the UAC, the User Account Control. Malware really has gotten horrible as computers were widely adopted. And ultimately, what a lot of malware wants to do is called elevation of privileges, where it wants to make itself an admin, because if it can do admin things, it can really destroy your computer. And so Microsoft decided, you know what, we need to have something where we can stop this. We can have it where a person has to get in the middle of this and say, you're going to be making some system changes. Are you sure you want to do that? And so they came up with the UAC, the User Account Control, where if you're making major changes or system changes, you will get a pop-up that will say, did you want to do this or not? And you select yes or no. The UAC puts everything on pause until the user makes the determination on whether or not to use it. Now, what's kind of funny is when Windows came out with this, Apple just absolutely roasted them. I mean, Apple was vicious on this one. It was that whole, hi, I'm a PC, hi, I'm a Mac commercial thing. And they really went off on, because the PC was like, the Apple said hi, and then the security guy goes, Apple's saying hi, do you want to respond? And then he goes, yes, and then he responded. And it was very effective. But what was funny is Apple wound up using the UAC as well. So if you make any system changes on an Apple, on a Mac computer, it's also going to pop up. It's like, are you absolutely sure you're doing this? Are you a human? And this is what you intend to do. All right, then we have maintaining and uninstalling software. So no program is released without some flaws or bugs. That's just the nature of how things are. Just like no book is released without at least a spelling mistake or two, no matter how many times you check it. But I'm feeling absolutely fine now, really.
System failure.
But software always has a bug or two inside. Again, no matter how well you make it. And so it's important to keep software updated and download the updates and install the updates. And we do this through patches and updates. You can download these sometimes from manufacturers' sites, or if you install it through a third party, for example, you install a game through Steam, then Steam is handling the updates for you. But it is important that you keep your software updated, because if you don't, bad things can happen. And we'll learn more about those bad things when we start talking about security. But updated software is very important to do. Little tech tip for you. Windows and other programs have things called service packs. A service pack is a collection of many updates, patches, and hotfixes. We used to call them service packs, but they kind of changed the terms for it, and now they call them cumulative updates instead. But it's basically the same thing. Instead of having to install every update, they combine them. And so, for example, let's say that you have a computer that's a year old and you have to reformat the hard drive. You have to reinstall Windows. You don't want to have to install every one of those updates that happened over that year or 2 years or more. And so by having these collections, you just download the collections. It makes getting your computer up to speed a lot faster than installing every single update. I've had to do that way back in the day. It's not fun. Then we have uninstalling. So you're done with the program. You need to get rid of it. This is the final phase of any program, is maybe removing the program from the device. This can be due to you no longer need the program. Maybe you're replacing it. Maybe you're switching out a different program, or maybe you need a newer version. It's important, especially on Windows computers, to uninstall the program. Do not just delete the program. Little story time for you. Okay. This is a latte, by the way. I think I said that earlier. I had a part-time job at Best Buy years ago, and I was on a tech bench. This is before it became the Geek Squad, so this should tell you how old it was. And I had a nice little lady come in, little old lady come in, and she said that she deleted Norton's antivirus off her computer. Okay. I sought clarification. When you say you deleted Norton's antivirus off the computer, can you describe to me what that looked like? What did deleting Norton's look like to you? And she said, well, I just went in there and I found the folder and I deleted the folder with Norton's on it. Oh, crap. Well, when you're installing that software, remember the wizard we talked about earlier? In Windows Computer, you have something called the registry. The registry keeps track of everything you've done to that computer, every software thing you've installed, every piece of hardware you've installed. Well, Norton's isn't just sitting there in a folder. Norton's, and like a lot of other programs, is spread throughout your computer. And antivirus software especially is spread throughout your computer because it does that so malware can't just rip it away and kill it. Long story short, I spent an entire shift. I spent like 5 hours at Best Buy on the tech bench, going through the entire registry, finding every key that's like entries of this antivirus software and having to delete it. We tried to encourage her just to reformat the computer. She didn't want that. And so I had to go in and remove every trace of Norton's on that computer. So I cannot stress this enough. Do not just go and delete a program. Go and uninstall it. It will get rid of the program, hopefully the right way. Now, there's usually some traces left here and there, but they shouldn't destroy your computer. Just deleting it is, again, don't do it. And like I just said, we talked about the registry with its many roots, so that is a bad thing to do. So how do you remove a program in Windows? Well, first uninstall by going to the control panel and selecting uninstall a program under program categories. You can also sometimes right click on the program and look for something that says uninstall. If the user has installed programs through third parties, so for example, through Steam, you're probably going to go through Steam, or I think Steam now sends you to the Windows uninstall program. Just be aware that you're looking for uninstall somewhere. I see something popped up in chat. Good question. Good question. I asked a really good question, which is if there are traces during uninstall, what does that do to your computer? Is it bad to have those traces? Not necessarily. However, let's say you've had your computer for 5-6 years. And this was definitely a bigger problem back in the day. Sometimes those things would kind of collect and cause system slowdowns. And so as a technician, we had different tools where we could actually go through the registry and look for orphaned keys. We could look for keys that no longer belong to programs. Again, they're going to leave little traces here and there. And so there are tools that you can find and download it and part of your toolkit where it will look for orphan keys and remove them. You can clean out the registry. This has to happen every now and then. Honestly, I haven't had to do this in forever. Windows 10, Windows 11 is a lot better at it than the old version of Windows, but you can still get software third-party tools to go in and remove those traces. Now, I will give this important caveat. Before you mess around in the registry, you walk very carefully in the registry. Okay, if you're in the registry and you don't have a little bit of a little nervousness, then you don't understand what the registry does. It can kill your computer. So there's a way to back up your current registry. And before you do anything in the registry, you want to make a backup of that registry, put it on a thumb drive, put it somewhere, because if you mess it up, it can actually prevent your computer from booting correctly. That's the registry. So for Tech Plus, we don't touch it. Registry cleaning, reg edits, things like that is more of a CompTIA A+ certification. But you are right that it can cause slowdowns on your computer. It can cause lagging on your computer. I would say in rare cases, it can cause systems to crash, things like that. But again, the newer versions of Windows have gotten really good at handling these things. But you can find third-party tools to help clean up the registry. Very good question. As far as removing programs, again, you want to go to uninstall. Depending on the program, you might have to reboot the computer to complete the uninstall. Now, I'm an old tech, and just on principle, when I uninstall something, I always reboot the computer afterwards. It clears it out. I just want to make sure it's completely gone. On a Mac, it's a little bit easier. Open Launchpad, you press and hold that Option key. The applications will start to juggle. You want to click the X next to it, that deletes it, or you can open the Finder and delete them there. Mac OS does not have a registry. We are led to believe that all you got to do on a Mac is just delete the program. What is the exact opposite of what I told you to do with Windows. But on a Mac, you're supposed to just delete the program. Well, the reality is it leaves traces there as well. Let me see what the question is. Connie asked a really good question about defragging your computer. Yes, you can defrag. However, let me put in a big however on this one. The need to do it is no longer as big as it used to be. Now, for those of you who are new to computers, in the old days, again, defragging your computer was something you had to do on a regular basis, especially if you were adding and removing programs. So I would say back in Windows 95 days, Windows 98 days, you were defragging your computer, I would say, depending on the activity, once a week or so, maybe more often, maybe once a month. Again, it depends on how often you use your computer, but you would defrag quite a bit because you would notice a significant difference in your performance. But this is also the hard drives involved, because the hard drives have platters that a read-write head would have to go back and forth on. And the files would be scattered throughout your hard drive. And so the more that they were scattered, the more that read-write head had to move around to find all the pieces, which would slow everything down. Now, there's been two big advancements that don't make this as important as it used to be. One, operating systems have gotten a lot better at making sure your hard drive isn't fragged. In fact, I haven't had to defrag a computer in a long, long time, because Windows 10, Windows 11 is much better at organizing these files so you don't have to worry about them. And so the operating system on one hand has gotten more advanced, so defragging is not that big of a deal. The other thing that makes defragging not as important is solid state drives. Solid state drives have no moving parts. And so it doesn't matter if there's a file here, there, whatever. There's no mechanical head that has to go from here to there, to here, to there to read that information. And so we don't have to worry about really defragging. And if you got an M.2, forget about it. So defragging can still be done. It's just not as vital as it used to be. Excellent question. And in A+, you learn that there's actually a different name for it when you're dealing with a solid state drive. Okay. So good questions. Thank you for those questions. All right, let's talk about our software piracy. So we have something called intellectual property, and we call it IP for short. And intellectual property is a term used for creative works or inventions that can be protected through different mechanisms depending on the type of IP. And there are three different IPs that you should be aware of, and that is copyright, patent, and trademark. Hold on a second, I gotta check something here. Okay, we're good. Taking a look first at copyright. Copyright protects original works. So once something has been created, it is technically considered copywritten. It's protected under copyright. So, for example, I've written 3 different textbooks. I just got them back in today, so they'll fill in that gap above my shoulder over here. But those books are copywritten. I didn't have to apply for copyright. I didn't have to do anything. They're copywritten based off the fact that I wrote the books. They're original creations, and so they're protected for copyright. Now, for stronger protection, we can register the copyright, but I don't need to. Part of having the book is it's a lot more powerful, let's put it that way, okay, versus just I've got a piece of paper where I wrote something original, but when you got books and they're published and they got an ISBN, it's a little bit different. But copyright applies to any original creation. So, for example, a story, a poem, a song, music, these are all copywritten. They're all original works that are automatically given that protection. Then we have patents. Patents protect inventions. Unlike copyright, however, you have to apply for the patent. So these aren't automatically given. You have to apply for a patent. Patents are given by government bodies. And while the government is processing the patent, the inventor can use terms like patent pending or patent pending. Now, if you are a Shark Tank fan, a Shark Tank fan, especially in the early seasons, you would get these entrepreneurs that would go on Shark Tank and say, hey, look at my great invention. This is blah, blah, blah. This is what I got. And one of the first questions that the sharks would ask is this patented? And again, early on, some of them would say, well, no. And they would say, well, did you even apply for a patent? They'd be like, no. And their response was, by the time you get home, somebody was probably already applied for that patent. So patents are for inventions. Little fun trivia fact for you. Albert Einstein developed many of his early revolutionary theories while he worked as a patent clerk in a Swiss patent office. Then we have our trademarks. So used to protect an organization's product, service, and identity. We have two different symbols, the R with a circle and the TM. The R with a circle means registered trademark. It has been registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The R should only be used once the once the trademark has been registered. Now, I'm in the middle, and because we're doing a live stream and y'all are with me, I'll share something with you. StackFord is the company's name. We have the logo, we have all this other stuff. I applied for a trademark on StackFord. So we are currently in the queue with the US government. I think we applied for it back in January. So it's, again, it should tell you how long it's taken. It's currently May. We are in the queue for a trademark. Because we put our trademark request into the trademark office, we could put a TM behind StackFord, behind the name and the logo, because it hasn't been registered yet. If I put an R behind StackFord, I'm technically committing fraud. I don't have that trademark, but it is in the process of going through the the trademark office. So I could do a TM behind my company's name. Now, the other cool thing is that because it is in the process, if somebody's watching this live stream and they go, you know what, we're gonna trademark StackFord as well. Well, we're in the queue. We're already ahead of you. So you can't do that. I mean, you could try. They're going to tell you no. So the TM means it's not registered, while the R means the government has signed it, initialed it, stamped it, and now it is official, a trademark. Okay. So those are the differences between the two. So a little tech tip for you. We can actually see all three differences if we take a look at Star Wars. Star Wars, of course, has all of the answers, right? Absolutely.
Your field skills are no match for the power of the dark side.
So if we take a look at Star Wars, we can see copyright, trademark, and patents all coming into play. The movies, the music, the books, the TV shows are all protected by copyright. They're all original works. The Star Wars logo is trademarked, while the action figures and toys, which I have plenty in my office, I don't know if you can see some of them, but I've got I'm blocking a few of them, but these are patented. So the toys are inventions, they're creations, they're inventions, and they are patented. So Star Wars, again, has three great examples of all three of these things coming together. All right, the next one is software piracy. Okay, software piracy is when you use software in violation of the terms of service. This can be obvious, such as making illegal copies of a program, sharing or downloading it, but it can also be less obvious. For example, a company might have a licensing agreement for, let's say, 10 seats, 10 users who can use the software. They hire an 11th person. The 11th person isn't licensed for that software, so technically they're committing piracy. So piracy can be either intentional or non-intentional. I'm a huge fan of a TV show called IT Crowd. They have created this funny kind of spoof on a PSA. I can't share it with you here because these live streams will be used by schools and it's completely inappropriate. It's British humor, but if you're looking for it, just YouTube search IT Crowd Piracy and you can probably find their PSA. But anyways, software piracy can both be a civil and criminal offense depending on where it happens and how severe it was. It's not uncommon for pirated software also to contain malware, so you got to be careful there. And to help combat malware or combat piracy, manufacturers may have licensing keys or activation requirements. You may also see something known as DRM, which is Digital Right Management Protection. All right, that actually wraps up the PowerPoint on presentation software on our application unit. So I've got one more. Don't go anywhere yet. Don't leave. We still got one more Kahoot for you. Let me pull up that Kahoot here. And that will wrap up the night. While I'm doing this, if you have any questions, please ask them in chat. I've had some really good questions tonight. If you're watching this later on, after it's already been recorded, join the live stream. We're doing it from 6 to 8. And you're more than welcome to join us live and participate. Let me pull up our applications part 2. And we'll host it live. Let me start this up and we will switch over screens with the delay. Give you guys a few minutes to join. So right now it's 7:17 my time. We will let you guys join until, let's say, 7:21 or so. So come on in, go to kahoot.it or scan the QR code. And again, I want to thank those of you who joined us tonight for the live stream. Appreciate it. Connie, good question. Piracy, I don't think that's why they did it. I think they moved more towards download just because it's cheaper. It's easier to distribute their content, their stuff. They don't have to worry about production, or I should say, like creating optical drives, things like that. They can just offer them from streaming and downloads. Also, with optical media pretty much dying off on PCs, I don't know how many people have CD drives anymore, DVD drives. So download is just the way to go. For those of you older techs out there, I'm sure you remember LimeWire. Oh man, that thing was disease ridden. I mean, just the program itself was full of stuff. You had to get the LimeWire Lite. That was the cracked version of LimeWire. You could pirate LimeWire, which was awesome. That had a lot less crap in there. But yeah, LimeWire, man, that was old school. At least I heard it from friends. I never did that. All right, I think we have everybody in there. So let's get ready to start. Here we go. Again, if you're watching it on YouTube, there is a delay, but it should be showing up on your phones or your devices in real time. Here we go. Applications part 2. Get my game announcer voice going. What type of software is used to access websites? That, of course, is web browsers. Space Toucan taking the lead early on. Question number 2. Which of the following is a common web browser? Google Chrome. All right. Next question. Question number 3. What is remote support software used for? That is letting a technician help a user's computer from another location. All right. Magnetic Swan taking the lead. Still anybody's game, though. We got double point questions in here. Speaking of double point question, number 4 is a double point question. Before downloading software, what should you consider? That is whether the source is trusted. All right, next question. Question number 5. What does it mean to install software? Also, for any teachers watching out there at StackFord, we have these Kahoots available for you through our Teacher Lounge Center. Set up the software so it can run on the computer is the correct answer. Okay. Magnetic Swan still maintaining the lead. Question number 6 for double points, still anybody's game. What is software maintenance often used for? And of course, is updating, patching, and fixing software. Let's see what happens to the scoreboard. Harmonic Ladybug taking the lead, followed by Magnetic Swan. Question number 7. What does uninstalling software do? And that is removes the software from the computer and makes Scott a happy person because he's not spending 5 hours removing it from the registry. Harmonic Ladybug still in the lead. Question number 8. What is software piracy? A way of life is not a right answer. Illegal copy, sharing, and using software. If you want to have some fun, go look up a YouTube video. Don't copy that floppy. That is a legit PSA from way back in the day. Kind of funny comment. Number 9. Why should users be careful with pirated software? All right. Yes, it might be illegal and could contain malware. All right. Everybody get that one right? Let's see. Here's our last one. Geek Alert. Who needs to catch them all? Who needs to catch them all? Ash Ketchum. We're talking about Pokemon here. Let's see what that does to our final scores. Coming in 3rd place, Space Toucan. Coming in 2nd place, Magnetic Swan. And coming in 1st place, Harmonic Ladybug. Congratulations. All right. Don't forget, you can sign up for our newsletter. It comes out about once a month. You get latest updates and what we're doing, all that good stuff. We also have our book on Amazon, and Barnes & Noble hits #1 more than once, which is pretty cool. But that is it. We're doing our live streams on Tuesday and Wednesday. The dates are floating around. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm hoping you're getting a lot out of this. I hope you're studying. For those of you who can't make it live, no problem. That's why they're recorded. Feel free to reach out with any questions for me. Also, if I could get you guys to subscribe to the new channel, it helps a lot, especially with YouTube, because YouTube is sometimes weird. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Connie. I enjoyed writing the book. I've got another book for the A+. I just need to finish off some other things first, and then I'll be writing that book. But anyways, I want to thank you all for joining us, and I'll see you next Tuesday from 6 to 8 Central Time, where we continue on our review of the CompTIA Tech Plus certification. But until then, have fun studying, and goodbye for now.